Hi, my name's MOliveira. I'm a recreation therapist by education, and I've been working as such until earlier this year when I became the administrator of a 100 apartment assisted living in Alameda, California in the San Francisco Bay Area. The study I'm doing, or the paper, is on the age differences in the Big Five across the lifespan, evidence from 2 national samples, written by Donnellan and Lucas. So I'm going to be looking at personality traits in participants, talk briefly about the study. I'm going to show you a brief clip from the BBC called Do We Change with Age? Then look at some personal musings and then some questions for your consideration. So the Big Five personality traits are extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and openness. You can see examples of each one of those on the screen. So the study participants were from the British Household Panel Study, or BHPS. That began in 1991, using representative households of the UK and all their inhabitants aged between 16 and 99. However, for this study, they trimmed that top age to 86. And then for the German Socioeconomic Panel Study, or GSOEP, that began in 1984 and used random sampling to select households and included all inhabitants aged 16 and older. They didn't trim that study to any top age. So we've been contemplating the idea that personality may or may not change as far back as Aristotle. He was one of the first people to document his thoughts about this. William James did some research, and he believed that our personality was basically fixed by the time we were 30. And more currently, Costa and McCrae have been doing research on personality, and they believe that things do change a little bit more as we age. So for this study, there were 2 sets of data that were used, like I said, the BHPS and the GSEOP, and questionnaires were sent out annually to the study participants. In the findings, trends were based on age were consistent across the data sets, so people in their 30s seemed to be really consistent in their answers at other people in their 30s and so on. Positively associated characteristics with age were agreeableness. So the older you got, the more higher you scored yourself on the agreeableness trait. Negatively associated with age was extroversion and openness. There was a split association with neuroticism, with it being negatively associated with age with the British participants and a positive one with the Germans. And then there was a sigmoidal curve with conscientiousness, which peaked at middle age. Neither education nor gender were considered to be significant factors in this study. And then this was really the first study to look at the Big Five personality characteristics using nationally representative samples. Others had looked at individual characteristics, but this is the first study to look at them all together. So the study strengths. Both studies had large numbers of individuals. The British study had about 14,000 people every year, and the German study had just under 21,000 people each year. Both studies had low attrition rates, averaging between 5 and 6%, and the mean age and the standard deviation were relatively consistent for both studies, and you can see the numbers there on your screen. So some of the study weaknesses were that the German study participants were randomly selected, which may not have given an accurate cross-section of the German population. Also, the study was started in 1984, and it's not clear whether the data was from East Germany or West Germany or both. And when you consider the fact that the wall came down in 1989, they don't talk about how that affected the randomly selected households and how that could have changed the information. Also, both studies looked at responses given by people in given age groups, specifically by decades, but it didn't track longitudinal information on specific individuals. That makes it hard to know if people's traits changed or if the changes were actually the result of other factors such as socioeconomic or political nuances. And then this study only looked at 2 Western countries, so we really can't apply the information worldwide just because other countries and other cultures look at personality traits differently.
Well, the British Social Attitude Survey has been looking at our points of view since the 1980s and has found there are big generational differences on certain areas like same-sex marriage.
Here you find that, yes, young people are markedly more liberal and tolerant than older ones. And the main reason for that isn't that you get less tolerant as you get older, it's just that more recent generations are more liberal than older generations. And people don't really change their views about these sorts of things as they get older.
So some personal musings. It's from the BBC article, each generation seems to be more liberal than the ones before it. And that makes me wonder that while openness decreased with age during the study, I'm really curious if this trend would hold consistent 50 years from now. As more liberal generations, come, are we going to see that openness increases with age, or does it remain consistent? Also, with having worked for those over age 65 for over 16 years, I don't find these findings surprising. I find that openness does seem to decrease with age, while the other traits really consistent with what I see in my daily work. But the one thing that they didn't address, and that I'm always curious about, since dementia is a passion of mine working with people with dementia, are that as people age, are we actually seeing changes in personality? Or are we seeing disease processes like dementia that interfere and cause people to sort of lose a social filter, so that what seems to be a personality change really isn't a personality change, it's just a disease process that is affecting them. So here are my questions for your consideration. And do you believe that you can intentionally change your personality traits during your life? And if so, why would you? Do you believe that people are aware that their personality traits change over time? If so, why? And if not, why not? And finally, we know that people are a product of their time, but how much does that affect an individual's personality traits? And can changes in the political or socioeconomic landscape modify someone's personality independent of age? Thank you so much for watching my presentation, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Thank you.